I've had a lot of past girlfriends and a lot of breakups happen because of fishing.
All right, got to get your priorities straight, right? Fishing first.
Yeah. And whenever they're not okay with it, I realize that it's she's not the one, and I just kind of moved on.
Not the one.
Get up and go, put your body in gear. You're in control, so grab the steering wheel.
Welcome to the Destination Angler Adventures Podcast, the podcast about life and fly fishing from anglers like you. And I'm your host, Steve Haig. Here on the Adventures Podcast, we put you, the angler, center stage to tell your stories and share your adventures.
Get up and go. Get out of here. Get out of here.
So today, Dylan shares some pro tips on carp fishing girlfriends and his work to fish lifestyle in Colorado. Hey, if you've ever wondered about carp fishing on the fly, then this episode is for you. Let's hear from Dylan. All right, Dylan, man, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Steve. Thank you.
Yeah. So everybody, Dylan sent me a picture of a monster carp, and I was like, man, I got to find out more about this. So we ended up exchanging some DMs on Instagram and talked a little bit. Dylan, tell us about that huge carp you sent me. How big was that thing?
Oh, that guy. It was definitely pushing over 30 pounds, probably closer to 35, 40. For some reason out here, we have a little bit of a longer winter, I think, but the lakes out here, they have so much food. It allows the grass carp to just get monstrous. A lot of other places you go, you'll see grass carp and they're more streamlined and they don't eat as much. And out here, they're constantly eating and it gets them to world record size.
That is definitely anything but a streamlined carp. That thing.
Yeah.
That thing's got a belly on it. Now, where do you live?
I'm in the southwest corner of Colorado. You can really find grass carp out here. They're spread out. Some places kind of keep it a little close-lipped, and you kind of just got to get to a lake, and you're just surprised that there's even carp in there. But and even northern Colorado, I found it too. I think it's just there's so much bug life present, especially even in the spring underwater for them to eat. And then once it gets warm out here, there's so many big grasshoppers that are just full of protein for them to eat. They get massive because like you look at some other places like down in Arizona and like New Mexico that also hold grass carp, and they're a lot skinnier. And I think it's just because it gets so hot down there that the bug life starts to drop off again.
Yeah. All right. So you are in the middle of what I would call a trout mecca. You got a lot of trout fishing around you, yet you're chasing carp. What's up with that?
Oh yeah. The trout are great. They'll eat pretty much any fly and they're easy to trick. And there's a reason why I'm addicted to the grass carp, and because you could have the same conditions day after day, but one day all of them will want to eat. And then the next day, none of them will want to eat. And you're throwing the same thing in the same conditions.
Yeah.
There's no predictability to this fish. And that's why I think they're so addicting.
Really?
I've been in front of groups of 100 to 200 and sat there for hours and hours casting. And then all of a sudden one cast and I'm on one of the biggest carp I've ever caught. One of my bigger ones that I measured out up to 52 inches, I had been there casting into a pod of about 100 for 2 hours. And I had a few, they'll come up and mess with it, but they never committed to eating. And then just one horrible and I remember the cast too. It's hilarious. I can remember watching the grasshopper smack the water and me thinking to myself, oh, that was way too hard of a cast. I just scared those carp. And he came up and just ate it, and it was a 45-minute battle of me landing this fish and then it going back into the middle of the lake over and over again.
Really? All right, so what's your setup for carp?
Typically, I love to throw a 5-weight for them, especially because if it's a little windier, you can manipulate a grasshopper a little bit better. But like I've gone from 2 weights to 8 weights with them. An 8-weight, you'll definitely feel a lot more comfortable fighting the fish, but like a 5-weight, the thing's about to break, and that's what I'm there for. I want my 5-weight to think it's about to break.
You like that big bend then, huh?
Oh,
the challenge. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I've caught carp, not that big, but I've caught 10-pound carp on a 5 weight. And I kind of wish I had at least my 6 weight,
Oh
you know.
yeah.
Oh my gosh. All right. So what are the, in your mind, what are the keys to success? Give us some tips.
There's a lot. You know, one thing I'm always looking for, especially if they're eating top water, if they're if they're sitting on that top column of the water, and sometimes most of the time their back will be out of the water and they're just bobbing around, that's a good indication that they're definitely looking up. Because
Okay.
like common carp, especially in the spring, they'll be tailing and they'll be eating off the bottom and more mid-water column. But once it warms up, they look up, and when you're on there for the right day, like there's some days I've caught 7 to 10 of them. It's all because it's just hot and they're just sitting right there waiting for it.
They like the heat.
Oh yeah, yeah, and it's crazy. They act like tarpon sometimes too. Sometimes they'll act like carp and just pod up and sit on top of the water, and then there's other days where they're all from head to tail in like a tarpon line, just cruising the coastline. And if you just put a cast or two on that line and one of those carp, even if they don't go to the fly, but if they don't act like the rest of them and they break off the line a bit or they show that they saw that fly,
Yeah.
if you put another cast or two onto that carp, he'll most likely come up and eat.
Oh, really? Keep working him.
Oh, yeah. And I found that too. Like, if they show little interest, it's not, don't leave your fly just there. Keep giving them that fly and making them think that more grasshoppers are landing. And a lot more times than less, they'll turn around and come and eat it.
Really? All right. So carp eat grasshoppers. Okay, that's kind of news to me. Sorry, I'm not a carp expert. What else? What else do carp eat?
Grasshopper is by far the number one fly for them, especially like I said, once it's warm. But in the springtime, like when they're eating mid water column to low water column, a lot of times I use like damsel flies, something that will sink a little bit, and or like definitely a sparkly. They definitely like the color green. I mean, they love grass. That's why they're grass carp. I found they'll eat other colors, but green, especially lime green, if you can sit like a balanced lime green leech in front of them, they'll eat it.
Uh, it leeches too. Okay.
Oh yeah, and I've had them right after ice off chase down black leeches while I was trout and bass fishing, and they'll chase it down and eat it once in a while. But that's such a rare occurrence. You just never know when it's going to happen.
Okay. And you're in Southwest Colorado. What's your elevation down that way?
We're about 7,000 feet over here.
No kidding. So you're finding carp at 7,000 feet. How about that?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And they thrive out here. The grasshoppers, I mean, when it rains grasshoppers, you can just tell they start getting on it, and there'll be like a good week or two out here in the summer where they're everywhere in the lake and they're constantly coming up, and it's funny because you'll see them eat grasshoppers out in the lake regularly, but when you put the cast on them, they're so smart and finicky. They'll pull, if you have rubber legs on there, they won't eat the hook. They'll pull the rubber leg down. You'll see them swimming around with the fly sticking out of the front of their face. And the hook, you can't hook them. Like if you go to set, you're just pulling it out.
Really? Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
yeah.
So they're kind of smart, huh?
I'd like to say that they're smart. I don't know if they're smart or if they're weird or if they're just uncoordinated, but like you'll put a perfect cast on one and it'll come up full. It'll look like the entire orchestrated like cast to it going to eat, and it'll look like it's coming up to eat perfectly. It'll go right next to your fly, come up, eat the air, and just leave your fly there and go down and just act like nothing ever happened and just swims away.
That's just messing with you.
I don't know if they're smart or if they just don't know what they're doing, but it is hilarious. You just have to laugh at that point because, like, I've had some where they'll come up, miss the fly 6 or 7 times, and then I'll put a cast on it and it'll eat it without a problem.
Like how close do you have to cast to them to get them?
And that's the tricky thing. You want to be 5 or 6 inches right in front of their face, but the cast has to be for the most part, when you want them to eat and it be like, when you want to feel like you had a good shot at a carp, the grasshopper has to land very subtly. If it splashes too hard, a lot of the times they are gone. You won't see that fish for the rest of the day. And that's another part of the unpredictability, because I've had 100 casts where I'm like, oh, that was way too hard of a cast. And sometimes they'll even start running away from the cast being too loud, and then they'll do a full hard circle and they'll come back and eat that fly like they were mad that it scared them.
What was that thing?
It's amazing. Yeah. But it's just so unpredictable. Like, you could have the best cast in the world or the worst cast in the world, and the eat is all dependent on them.
Oh my gosh. All right. Dylan, how did you end up in Colorado? Because you're not from Colorado originally. Is that right?
No, originally from New Jersey. Grew up on one of the most hidden bass lakes in New Jersey. And I had actually met a girl, and she wanted to ski somewhere and I wanted to fish somewhere, and Colorado just kind of has it all. I mean,
that worked out.
Here, yeah, out here you find anywhere blue on the map and it's pretty much got fish.
Yeah. Then you still got the girlfriend?
No. Did not. I reconnected with my high school sweetheart now, and now I'm teaching her how to fly fish.
Is that right? Okay. There you go.
She loves it. Oh, she got the bend right away. Her first fish on the fly was a big brookie in a place that doesn't really have brookies that often. So It was just hilarious. And now she's hooked.
Oh my gosh. What do you do for a living, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I'm a cook. I tried to just plan out whatever job I could have where I could make good enough money and support myself. Because for the most part, I was by myself, and it was just me and my dog. And so I took up a cooking job where they paid really well. They understood my fishing habits. And in the summer, they give me 4 days off a week to let me go do what I want. They know not to bug me because I won't be in service.
Man.
And I was real fortunate that I found some people that really understood that I had a passion for the outdoors, and they just kind of let me run with it.
So that came up in the interview, like, hey, I really like fishing. You guys got to make room for my fishing.
Well, yeah, they had already known who I was, and they already knew my act, and they knew I'll put in the time and I'll work doubles so I can get my time off. I basically work to fish.
Okay, is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
How's the new girlfriend feel about that?
Oh, she loves it. She just loves that I have a hardcore passion into something. She's a super passionate person, so she's more understanding. And I think that's a good thing, because I've had a lot of past girlfriends and a lot of breakups happen because of fishing.
All right, got to get your priorities straight, right? Fishing first.
Yeah. And whenever they're not okay with it, I realize that it's she's not the one, and I just kind of moved on.
Not the one. Yeah, Dylan, how did you get into fly fishing? What was going on in your life?
Yeah, I grew up playing hockey my whole life. I didn't really know how to replace it, and I had gone through a really terrible breakup with actually the girl that I've reconnected with now, and I'm looking to make a life with. She really kind of made me realize I had to turn my life around and be a better person. And I was struggling for a bit. My buddy came home from college and just told me he knew how big I was into fishing already, and handed me a fly rod and just said, "Get at it, and you're going to be addicted to it." And he was so right. I never touched a spin rod again after that.
There you go.
For 2 months, I thought fly fishing was the dumbest thing in the world because of how aggravating it was with tangles and not having a real instructor to do anything. It was just all me. And after 2 months into it, I went trout fishing one day. I still remember. I went trout fishing one day, indicator, nymph rig, and the rapid was ripping so hard. And I had been fishing all day and wasn't catching anything. And I'm like, let me just put this through this fast rapid. And all of a sudden, I caught 3 or 4 trout right out of that rapid, and I was like, "Oh, this is the reason why people do this. There is something behind this." And from there, it was just, I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop. Like I said before, I've ruined a lot of relationships because of this, but it's my passion. You never stop thinking about it. It never leaves my mind. I'm at work and I'm either listening to your podcast or another fly fishing podcast, or all I'm doing is thinking about where I'm going to hike or where I'm going to fish next and what I'm using. Yeah,
that's awesome.
It's taken over my life. I've even gotten my dad, who is an ignorant spin fisherman for a very long time, and he
Yeah.
never thought the fly would work or he would ever have the patience to use a fly. And now he sends me pictures of him catching big trout in New Jersey on the fly.
In New
And
Jersey. All right.
oh yeah, oh yeah,
Okay.
super underrated state for fishing. I will say that.
There's trout in New Jersey, huh?
There's trout, there's huge carp, there's everything. It's a very multi-species state, and I also think that's why I fell in love with Colorado. I can go out here and poke any type of fish I want, and when you have that under your belt and in front of you, it's nice.
That's cool. That's super cool. All right, you got a bucket list location for carp fishing?
Bucket list for carp?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we talked about this a couple weeks ago. Remember?
I'd say Beaver Island. That's always probably my bucket list for carp. And I'd like to go over to Europe too, especially because a lot of those guys are catching them mostly on bait, and I'd like to go show them a thing or two with the fly.
Fishing. Yeah, they revere their carp. I know in the UK, there's carp that are 50 years old. They practically got them named.
And they're dinosaurs. They're dinosaurs, and like for me, and Beaver Island is another place where you can get to that, but I definitely want to go to Europe and go get one that's like a common carp over 50, or at least a mirror
That'd be pretty
too.
cool.
But I mean, Europe's my destination anyway, because they got carp over there, but they got Wells catfish, and that's just a bigger grass carp to me.
Yeah. All right. And folks, Beaver Island is in Michigan, like in the middle of Lake Michigan, off the coast of Michigan, right?
Yeah, and you're basically bone fishing for carp on flats, and to me that just sounds like paradise.
That does sound really cool. Well, I got to do a show on Beaver Island one of these days. Dylan, man, thanks for being on the show. What else can you tell us? Anything else we need to know about carp fishing?
Yeah, grass carp. There's a few things I'll just touch on real quick. They're very sensitive. I mean, all carp are very sensitive to vibrations around them, especially grass carp. And if they're getting looked at a lot, it's all about sneaking up on them. Don't let them know you're there. That, for me, is the number one key on how to get an eat from them. Sneaking up on them. Also, for me, like matching the background definitely helps. Either if you have a big sky behind you wearing blue, or like a lot of times I'm in cattail, so I'm wearing green. And I found that helps. And moving slowly through the water. Like if you see the carp already, move slowly. There is no rush. They're going to most likely stay in that spot anyway, or just do a little lap. So they're going to stay in the general area you see them in. There's no rush to getting to them. It's all about taking your time, seeing where they're kind of eating to and where they're sitting in the water column. Earlier in the year, they're going to stay lower. You're going to want to either throw some type of leech pattern or something along the woolly bugger pattern. But I've also, in the middle of winter, caught them off of giant streamers that were meant for bass. So they'll eat in the spring. They're a little pickier, a little weird. But once that warm time comes, like I said, just get a green grasshopper out there and put it in front of a bunch of them. And eventually you'll get one to eat. It took me a while. It took me a lot of trips going out there before I could even get my first eat. It's not easy. Cool. This is a fisherman's fish. This is something that you have to work at if you want to catch one. I've brought some of the best fly fishermen I've ever seen and hung out with to go catch a grass carp, and I'll catch one or two and they'll just be frustrated all day. You got to work. You have to put your work in.
You got to work at them. You just inspired me to get my fly rod out tonight and go try to catch some carp in my neighborhood ponds here, because we've got a bunch of them. I'm going to try a grasshopper, I think.
That's what I like to hear.
Yeah, man. Dylan, thanks for being on the show. It was great having you.
Gee, thank you. I'm about to strap my backpack on now and go hike into the mountains and hopefully go find a cutthroat or two.
Man, I'm jealous. Have a good one. Thanks, Dylan.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for listening to the Destination Angler Adventures podcast. I hope you enjoyed the adventure. Got an epic story you want to share on the podcast? Give me a shout on Instagram or email at shaig50@gmail.com. And if you like the show, please tell a buddy. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button to catch all the episodes coming your way. And our music is by Brothers Fountain, a great little band out of Colorado. Tight lines, everybody.